some Mets here. For all your Mets here, let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home Make it happen. There's no stopping us now. We're gonna do it again. It's not a question of how. It's just a matter. It's just a matter. It's just a matter of
Hello again, everybody. Joe Piscopo, Shea Stadium. The big story. Mets 86. Exciting, thrilling, awesome. Let's take a look.
What's up, Met fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets here, Rob. How is everybody doing today on this off day for our New York Mets as they head to California to play the Oakland Athletics for 3 games after taking another series against the Milwaukee Brewers? Yesterday's game was it wasn't our day. A lot of hard hit balls. They had guys on base, but it didn't happen. Finally, the Braves lost, and the Mets, of course, had to match the Braves and lose as well. So, with that said, 11 games to go in this 2022 season for our Mets. The Phillies and the Braves play tonight. So we're all Philly fans for the next 4 games. Let's see if Philly wants to get revenge against the Braves and see what they can do to actually get back at them after the terrible performance they shown last time the Phillies faced the Braves, which was about a week ago. Hopefully everybody is doing well. I know some people are actually going to California or already in California. The 7 line is going to be there on Saturday, so I do know a lot of them go to all the games, so it's going to be pretty cool to see on the next couple of days that basically they're going to be the only fans there, as you all know how bad the Athletics draw, which is kind of sad. Hopefully everybody is ready to talk about the series, talk about the Brewers series, and what will it take? Let's talk about how many wins you think it's going to take to actually get to where the Mets need to be and win the division. I'm thinking, there's so many different people that are talking about, maybe it could be 103 games, could be 102, 105. Well, I think we have to, for some reason, I don't know where the hell I put my phone, but I'll find it. But it's important to think, what do the Mets have to do? Where do we have to look at? We also have to look at the tiebreaker scenario with the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves, because as of right now, the Mets have a 2-game lead on the season series against the Braves. Obviously, they got 3 games to go. So if you just do the math, if the Mets take 1 game against the Braves, they automatically win the season series. So what has to happen for the Braves to win the division is they have to win by at least 1 game in overall record. So they can't tie us because we win the season series. So it's technically, when you really look at it, it seems to be like 2-game lead instead of a 1-game lead. Why is that? Because, well, the tiebreaker, right? If we go into the Atlanta series still up 1 game, it's technically 2 games as long as we win one of the games against the Braves in that series. So I'm thinking around 102, 103 wins, and it really does depend. And we were talking about it the other yesterday during the game, and we were also just going about it the last couple of live streams. This series against the Phillies is really going to tell how many wins it will probably take to win the division against the Braves, right? The Mets still hold their own destiny in their hands. Clearly, they're up. They're off today, so the Mets can be a half a game up when they play tomorrow, or they could be a game and a half up, which we're all hoping for. And I really do hope that the Philadelphia Phillies actually wake up. I put on Twitter this afternoon, just for 4 games, I am a Phillies fan. Go Phillies. Beat those Braves. That's what I put on Twitter. And I put it towards the Phillies page, Twitter account. So, and I think they actually liked it or something like that. And the Nats put something yesterday when they beat the Braves, and the Nationals made a comment about Mets fans all over their page. So it was kind of funny. Again, the Braves and the Braves fans got extremely cocky over the last year. I know they won the World Series, but they are a team and a fan base that got extremely cocky in 1 year. And you know what? Even last year, even before the playoffs, even during the season, you didn't hear a lot about the Braves fans. All of a sudden, they come out of nowhere and they start trolling the channel. I saw they go on other channels and other Mets channels as well. Again, it's all fun and games when you're rooting for your team, and that's what fans do, right? That's what we all do. But when it comes down to it, when you hear them say, especially the fan base, say, "Oh, the Braves are better than the Mets," or "This team's better than this team," if the record is not showing that, doesn't matter. And I hate when people think that, because, like, and a lot of people act like if the Mets lose the division, they can't win the World Series. Of course they can. They make the playoffs. Anybody can win the World Series. We've seen this over the last couple of years in Major League Baseball in the playoffs alone. So, with that said, the most important thing for the Mets is to continue to look forward. I think last month into early September, they kept on. Oh, the shirt today is the Jeff McNeil Flying Squirrel shirt. Yeah, I like it. There we go, right there. Got the Jeff McNeil. I wanted to represent McNeil a little bit because it seemed like he was flying all over the field yesterday and giving up his body for the team. And I love that. And, I don't have no Nimmo stuff. Excuse me. I don't have no Nimmo stuff, so McNeil is where I had to go. So I went McNeil today. It looks like McNeil is going to be fine. And Nimmo's probably day to day. I doubt he's playing tomorrow, but you never know. So what the hell was I saying? So look, the Mets are in first place. It's that simple. No matter what happens tonight, the Mets will continue to be in first place starting the game in Oakland on Friday. So that's what we have to worry about. Again, we keep winning. It puts pressure on the Braves. And it showed, even in the National Series, in those 3 games, even though the Braves took 2 out of 3, the second game wasn't easy for them. You could see them starting to tighten up a little bit as well. Everybody forgets the Braves were sailing after mid-August, because after we knew that Jacob deGrom was not coming back, Everybody knew the season was over for the Mets. The Phillies weren't a threat to the Braves. So the Braves had basically a month and a half to just stroll into the playoffs without any pressure until they got to the playoffs, and they proved the playoff pressure was. But every series they went into, they were underdogs. Now the target is on them. And let's be honest, when you're chasing somebody for the entire year, there's still not a ton of pressure. And you saw it you could see it on Twitter. Yes, on the day when the Mets came back with the Alonso and Lindor home run. Braves Twitter was going nuts when the Mets were losing 4-0. As soon as Lindor hit that home run and the Mets went ahead, it went silent. And it just shows you that how much Braves fans and even the Braves, which I don't like, I get the fans can get a little bit crazy both ways, Mets and Braves fans. But when you have the organization playing narco when the Mets lose, and when Contreras, they actually had somebody play a trumpet as well to make fun of Timmy Trumpet in Atlanta. They're doing all that stuff. And it just shows you that putting pressure on the Braves, that it's starting to get to them as well. And especially the fan base as well. And it's clear because you see it. When the Mets are winning, the Braves fans are nowhere to be found. As soon as the Mets lose and the Braves might be winning in the game, they flock like a bunch of freaking seagulls looking for scraps. That's what they do. And we've been talking about this all year, until the Mets lose first place for more than 24 hours, it actually does not matter. And it really doesn't. It doesn't. Nobody's saying they're not a good team. You'd be crazy to say they're not. They got the respect of being the World Series champions last year. But that was last year. It means absolutely nothing this year. It really doesn't. Right? Just like the Dodgers winning in 2020 meant absolutely nothing when the Braves faced them. When the Astros were one of the best teams in the league over the last couple of years, meant nothing when the Braves faced them. It does not matter what you did last year. Because at the end of the day, this Mets team did a complete 180 from last year. A totally different roster, basically. So when people are like, oh, the history of the Mets. So what? Were Braves fans talking about the history of the Braves choking every single year with all those division titles? No. You didn't care about that history. The Nationals cared that they couldn't win a playoff series in their small team history in Washington, who always choked in the first round, but they made it through 2019 and won the World Series. History means nothing. What I see is what's in front of me. I watch this damn team every single day. And there's something really special about this team. Not saying that that's going to win a World Series, but I feel confident in saying if the Mets are down, if the Mets go into the playoffs, I know that 9 out of 10 times we're going to have the better pitching matchup going into any game of the playoffs. And I truly feel that. I feel comfortable saying that my number 4 starter, no matter if it's Carrasco or if it's Taijuan Walker, is probably better than almost every number 4 starter in the playoffs. I feel confident in saying that. That's why in a short series, nobody comes close to, and this goes for any healthy rotation. With DeGrom, Scherzer, and Bassett, not many people have a Chris Bassett like anybody has a 1-2-3 like the Mets at all. So, and I think that especially with the Phillies being as desperate as they are, and I wouldn't look. You want the Mets to win yesterday, but having the Brewers win, obviously the Phillies and the Brewers are like neck and neck, and the Phillies are holding on for dear life on that last wild card, and the Brewers won yesterday. Of course, we wanted the Mets to win yesterday, but maybe in an odd way that actually no excuses for the Mets. They didn't score. They sucked yesterday. But they, the Brewers beat the Mets. And now the Phillies are like, oh man, we got to worry about this damn Brewers team. So the Phillies are desperate, right? They've been holding on to that wild card spot for a long time. Ever since they got hot in the second half, they've been holding on to it for a long time. But they got to look at it like, all right, we got to go now. If they lose this series to the Phillies, to the Braves, 3 out of 4. If they lose that, there's a pretty good chance that they're not going to make the playoffs because the Brewers' schedule gets a lot easier. They play a couple teams in the Central, which they should have no problem with, and I think the Phillies will miss out on the playoffs. Now, it would be funny because it is the Phillies and they are our rivals as well, but I'm looking at the fact that as a Mets fan, we need them to split the series, right? Because what that does, that gives us an opportunity to actually lose the game in Oakland and take 2 out of 3. Because if we take 2 out of 3 and they split the series, well, there's nothing that actually changes hands when it comes to how many games back we are or in front. So if you knock 3 or 4 more games off the schedule and we still have that 1-game lead, well, we're going into Citi Field against the Marlins. And then we got the Braves after that. So if we got, that's what I do feel that somebody is either the Mets and Braves are going to be tied going into that series, or the Mets or the Braves are going to be 1 game up going into that series as well. And if you notice what the rotation is Bassett, DeGrom, and Scherzer for the Oakland series, and that sets up perfectly with the off days to get ready for that weekend series in Atlanta. So they might because of the 2 off days, they could switch it around. They might want to start Scherzer in game 1 in Atlanta because everybody would have an extra day, I believe, because of the 2 off days. So you would think that they would set up any way they would, whatever they go. Maybe if they like a certain matchup, I don't know. But I can guarantee you those 3 pitches, Bassett, DeGrom, and Scherzer, will pitch in some order against the Braves because it sets up perfectly. And with these days off, it not only sets up our rotation because the Braves are doing the same thing. The Braves are setting up their rotation as well going into that series. But with Nimmo being a little bit, I'm not going to say injured, but a little bit fragile at the moment, considering what happened yesterday on that slide when he finally stole a base. Nimmo, don't steal, please. Clearly, you get hurt or you can't steal at all. So stay on the base. And then McNeil, I think McNeil will be playing tomorrow. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But Nimmo is day-to-day. I doubt he's going to play tomorrow. So that's one less guy. He's not going on the IL, obviously. So that's one guy that's not going to be starting and probably not going to be ready to be a bench piece that we can use late in the game. Because if he's still healing from that knee injury or that quad injury, you're not going to throw him out there and risk getting him hurt. So you're down a guy on the bench. So, if it's going to be Canna, you do got Gore, who you can throw into the outfield. You just bat him 9th and hope for the best, right? If he takes a walk or gets an infield hit, he can steal bases, and he's a very good defensive player. So you throw him in center field. He got the speed. He's a very good defensive player. You can put Gore out there. You can put McNeil. If you need him in left, you need him in right. You can do that. You got Canna. You got guys like that can play as well, depending on how you want to mix it up, depending on who's pitching for Oakland and if it's lefty or righty. So with that said, guys, welcome to Mets Talk Live. We are here on the Mets off day. A little bit of sigh of relief. We can't lose. We can't win. But we also can root for the Phillies. The Phillies and Braves play out. I think it's 7 o'clock tonight. I think it is. So we'll be okay there. So I'll be with you for an hour today until 6:30 because what is there a lot to talk about, right? We know what to talk about. We talk about the Brewers recap, and we're going to talk about the upcoming series against the A's. President, yes, exactly. It's going to be mostly Mets fans, just like every other team that was there most of the time. They always had other fans there. So it's not like the A's players are going to be used to it, right? They are going to be used to it. They played all year when there was probably more fans of the other team there. So don't think that's going to mess with their heads a little bit. They've seen it all year. So they're used to that, and they're young kids that are trying to stay up in the bigs. So, that's why you always worry about teams in September, no matter what their record says, because there's a lot of young kids they bring up that are trying to stay in the show and not get sent back down. They like that Major League Baseball paycheck every 2 weeks, so they don't want to go back down. So that's why, when people started talking, oh, the Mets schedule is getting easier. Yeah, if you look at the roster in May. But when you got these young kids, top prospects that want to stay up and prove to their team that they can stay up and not go back down to the minors, it's a whole different ball game. So with that said, don't forget to hit on that like button, guys. I'll be with you until 6:30 tonight. And we'll just keep on talking about what the Mets need to do. It's fairly simple, right? You're playing a team that is not very good. Let the bad team, make mistakes. You saw it in the Brewers series, right? They made a couple of mistakes. The Mets were taking a couple of pitches. They weren't fishing. They were working the count, and slowly but surely the Brewers started to make mistakes, and the Mets took advantage of it. The same thing what the Mets did not do in the Cubs series and did not do in the National series at Citi Field. They did not take advantage of mistakes. The Cubs and the Nationals made a ton of mistakes in that series. The Mets couldn't capitalize on those mistakes. That's what the Mets had done all year to bad teams. They made a mistake, you made them pay. Same thing you got to do in this series. Look, the goal is to always take the series. If you take the 2 out of 3 against Oakland, when you're thinking with Philadelphia in that bandbox, you never know how it could go. You think that a lot of runs are going to be scored. I think it's going to be very hard for the Braves to go 3 out of 4. I think they're going to split. If they split and we take 2 out of 3, well, we're back to square one again, right? We're in the same position we were when we started in Oakland. So, yeah, Rocky, I get it. I know you have to win easy games, but you know what? The Braves should have won that easy game yesterday against the Nationals, and they didn't. It's baseball. This is why we watch the game, right? If we know you're going to win against bad teams, then why are we watching, right? Why do we turn and watch every pitch and every second of the Pittsburgh series at Citi Field? Because it's baseball. If we knew the outcome, we wouldn't watch, right? That's the whole point. And that's the whole point of this. That's why, the Braves in game 2 against the Nationals nearly lost that game in the 9th. We know the Braves are way better than the Nationals. Why would the Braves have trouble with the Nationals? Why? Because it's baseball, right? There's no reason why a career minor leaguer in Meneses hits a 2-run homer off a guy who is going to be a bullpen arm for the Braves. It doesn't make sense. You know why? Because it's baseball. That's basically it. And there's no other way to say it. It's just that, if we looked at the schedules and be like, all right, that's all those bad teams for the Mets and the Braves, just give them wins. It doesn't work like that, right? As bad of a stretch the Mets had at home with the Nationals and the Cubs, the Braves still didn't take advantage of that situation because during that whole homestand, we were either a game or a game and a half up or 2 games the most during that stretch. And the Braves could have knocked off 5, 6, 7 in a row. What happened? They went on a West Coast trip and went 500. They had to do better than that. And I said that before they went on the West Coast. The Braves have to be better because the Mets were leading in the standings. The Braves had to be better than 500 on the West Coast. They needed to go 2 games over 500. It wasn't an easy West Coast trip. They had Seattle. They had the Giants. It wasn't an easy West Coast trip, especially in September. That's why this series in Oakland, these series are tough in September. You pass the dog days of summer, you're going down the stretch run. Nobody wants to go on a West Coast trip, even if it is for just a series. This is a very odd West Coast trip when it's only 3 games and you're coming back. It's weird. That's why the Mets have a couple of off days as well going forward because it's a stupid trip. The same thing with the Braves. They had a long, 9-game stretch in the West Coast because of that. And look, they went up at 500. The team with the best record in baseball in the second half didn't play what they were capable of playing like they were all second half. They actually struggled against the Mariners, against the Giants. So, and they should have won those games, right? They were leading in almost every one of those games at the end. So it's baseball, right? That's basically what it is. Ken, thank you. I know, right? McNeil, flying squirrel, got to represent, man. And listen, when Brosseau hit that home run yesterday, McNeil nearly caught that ball. I know they showed how high the ball was hit, but that ball went over the wall by like 5 feet. So McNeil almost had that ball. I would have been amazed if he would have caught that ball. And that's why I wanted to give a shout out to McNeil. That's why I wanted to represent him, because he gave up his body yesterday. And, sometimes, how we talk about, he looks like he don't want to be there. He's not playing. He looks sluggish. McNeil went all out. I mean, I know that was like just a coincidence what happened, that he's tried to slide, avoid Escobar going back on the ball, and his knee got stuck and kind of hurt him. But it looked like he was okay. He played the rest of the game, so it's also good. Yeah, Juju, look, if you're still going to continue to worry about Kelenic, do you want Kelenic or do you want Diaz, right? Because if that trade was never made, who would be a closer right now? Nobody really knows, right? Probably be Seth Lugo. So, yeah, Kelenic, he went 2 for 2 with 2 RBIs so far. That's nice. That's good. We don't have to – see, that's why when people go crazy about a trade, when you trade a guy that's out of your league and is completely irrelevant in your eyes until you face them. That's it, right? Even if Kelenic becomes an all-star in 2025, the Mets wouldn't have a great season in 2022 if it wasn't for that trade because of Edwin Diaz, right? So before we go all crazy about that, you don't make a trade like that. Obviously, everybody knows you don't trade your top prospect and take on all the money of Cano. You're doing Seattle a favor by taking on that money. If you wanted to give a prospect, it should be in the top 30, not your top prospect. That's Brody Van Wagenen for you. But you can't completely kill the trade, because if we didn't make that trade, who would have been our closer, and who would have thought that we would have this many wins and have the best closer in baseball? You just can't know. And if Kelenic becomes an all-star, well, we had the best closer in the game this year. And the Mets will sign him. And he's going to be one of the better closers in the game. We'll see what he does in the playoffs. He's never been there before, so you never know. But the Mets would have never had a season like this if it wasn't for Edwin Diaz being as dominant as he was. So I don't like going back and talking about a trade that has been done for 3 years now. And at the moment, if you really think about it, the Mets kind of won that trade at the moment. How good Seattle would be if they also had Edwin Diaz with how good they played this year. They would be almost unstoppable. So you can't kill a trade where Kelenic, when he first came up last year with Seattle, he played well for like a week. And then he went like 2 for his last like 30-something. So it's not the point of worrying about that trade, because it's irrelevant at this point. You got Diaz, Cano is gone. Kelenic is still 50-50. We still don't know what he is. He's still a top prospect, but that doesn't mean anything. If he becomes an all-star, what does that mean to the Mets? Nothing, right? If Kelenic would have been up and we never made that trade, maybe the Mets would have never got Marte. Maybe they would have never got Canna. Well, then what would your outfield look that way if Kelenic wasn't doing what you needed him to do as a top prospect in this outfield? Well, guess what? All that production that Marte have given, and Kelenic's not giving it to you, where would this team be? So you have to look at it that way as well. James, I talked about this since the series at Citi Field, the 5-game series against your Braves. I do not know why. After you made that trade for Raisel Iglesias, I thought as soon as they made that trade that Iglesias was going to be a closer. Why they're continuing with Kenley Jansen? The only logical explanation I have, James, is this. Kenley Jansen can't pitch anywhere else in a game, in any other inning. He has a mindset of a closer. And the Dodgers tried this when he first came back from that heart condition. And they put him in the 7th and 8th row and gave it to somebody else for a little while. The problem is you can't throw this guy in the 7th or 8th inning and trust him and let him blow a lead in the 7th or the 8th inning, and then you don't use Raisel Iglesias at all. So what I think the Braves are thinking is that if you got a lead, or if it's a tie game or a 1-run deficit, Raisel Iglesias is good to use in the 7th or 8th inning to keep you ahead, keep you just behind for a run, or keep you tied, and then you roll the dice in the 9th inning with your offense. That's the only thing I can think of. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, and this is not the same Kenley Jansen that was throwing 96 miles an hour cutters, 97 miles an hour cutters. He's still got the movement on that cutter, but when it's only going 91, 92, you have a pretty good chance of hitting it, and he's very wild as well. So, and there's a reason why the Dodgers moved on for him, because of the fact that he's not trusted enough in big games, in big closing situations. So the only thing that I can think of, there's two reasons actually. Number one, I think they think Raisel Iglesias is somebody that can pitch the 7th and 8th inning in certain spots if they're leading, if they're trailing by 1, or if they're tied, and keeping that game where it is and putting that pressure on the offense that is so dangerous going into a later inning. And then if you got the lead and you go into the 9th, you just hope and pray, I guess, because I don't see the point of not giving Raisel Iglesias the closer role now with 2 weeks left in the season, just to get him acclimated in the 9th inning and in closing situations, because everybody seems to forget Raisel Iglesias hasn't been in the postseason as a player either. So you don't know how he's going to perform in a big spot. So, he's got great stuff. We all know that. We all know he should be the closer. But if you're going to throw him in on October 7th in whatever series you might be in, the division series or the wild card series, how can you he's good stuff-wise, but you don't know how he's going to perform being the closer of a team that traded for you when since August you've been the 7th or 8th inning guy. I don't understand that. And look, I don't like to kill the Braves organization or the mentality, because they've been an A-class, A1 organization over the last couple of years, especially with bringing up the young kids, knowing when to bring up the top prospects, and making the big signings they needed to make. So it's hard to, they won the championship last year based on deadline deals, based on bringing up the young kids at the right time. And they did it again this year with the young kids. So I can't kill them, but it doesn't make sense. When you see Brave fans wondering why Kenley Jansen is still their closer, the only reason I can think of is that they think Raisel Iglesias is a guy you could throw in the 7th or 8th inning, keeping the score where it is, and bringing up your offense again. That's the only thing I can think of. And having your offense do damage in later innings. That's the only thing I can think of, because Jansen is garbage. And there were some Braves fans in June and July that were, Kenley Jansen's good. Kenley Jansen's good. I'm sorry. All right. Every time I see that guy, he's walking the ballpark. Like, I don't know how many more games you need him to blow to realize that. There was a lot of Braves fans that were saying, I got into an argument with a guy on Twitter. They're like, Diaz is going to blow a game. Well, he probably will. I mean, he's not invincible, but he's been good. You can't compare Jansen to Diaz this year. Career-wise, Jansen obviously had a really good career as a closer, but he's not the same guy. You can't compare half the good closers to Kenley Jansen, because he's a dumpster fire. He really is. And again, maybe he'll turn it on in the playoffs, but you've seen it all year with Jansen, right? I mean, you see it in the Cardinal series, you see it in the Giants series, you see it in the Mariners series. Listen, Mets fans know that very well. We've had John Francos of the world and Armando Benitez and the Aaron Holmans of the world. We understand being in big spots with closers that can't handle that pressure. And I'm not saying Jansen can't handle the pressure. I just think he tries to do too much because he has to make up for the lack of stuff that he has in this area of his career, in this time of his career. If he was throwing 96, 97, I would say, you know what? He can just use pure stuff to get people out. But when you have to rear back to throw 93 and get a little bit more cut on the ball, well, guess what? Hitters can hit that. So, and he's also wild. He's always been wild. He's always been a guy who loses the plate. So that's why I think with the rotation for the Mets. And with Diaz in the ninth, people are like, oh, DeGrom can't go 7 or 8 innings. From that 6th and 7th inning, that's where he started to falter a little bit ever since he came back. I tend to agree with that. But I also know that DeGrom is that type of guy with that mentality that he picks it up another level. And we've seen it in 2015 when he even didn't have half the stuff that he has now. And I don't know if he's getting tired. You got to remember, he hasn't pitched in a year, so the innings could be getting to him, even though it's not a lot of innings. It adds up on him. And, he's not 100% stretched out to the point where I don't know if he can go 7 or 8 innings. I don't know that because I haven't seen it. But I do know that DeGrom has that mentality in a postseason. We've seen it in 2015. When you need him to go late in games or keep that team from scoring too many runs, and it's only a 2 or 3 runs that he gave up, he'll keep the team in the ball game. And I think that with his mentality, that's why people loved him, right? He wasn't a top prospect. We all know he had good stuff when he came up, but the demeanor that we seen from Jacob deGrom, the guy who doesn't falter, the guy that in big spots, in a pressure situation, is cool, calm, and collected. He has ice in his veins. The same what we saw last year and even early this year with Tyler McGill. He has that same deGrom mentality. Not the same stuff as deGrom, but when you got that mentality, and Bassett has that too, that no-nonsense mentality, like, I might not have great stuff tonight, but I will keep my team in the ball game. You want those type of bulldog, no-nonsense attitude on the mound. Because too many guys you see get flustered. Oh, my God, a base hit. Damn, I got to run around. It's only the first inning. I'm going to put my team behind. You start getting that in your mind. Well, now you're going to squeeze the ball a little bit tighter. Now you're going to try to overthrow. Now you're going to walk people. Now you got more men on base. When you got those strong-minded, focused individuals on the mound, and we know it, Scherzer's like that. We know Bassett's like that. We've seen it this year. Even how many times do we see him not have his stuff, and he still pitched 7 innings and give up only 2 runs? We've seen it all year with Bassett, and we see what deGrom can do. So I'm focusing. Look, we're going to focus on Oakland. That's what matters. We know the Mets are making the playoffs. So it's okay to talk about the bullpen postseason roster and the bench postseason roster. There's a lot of guys, if everybody is healthy, the bullpen's going to be very interesting. Are they going to go with Peterson and McGill and put Walker in there as well, and then go with Lugo Diaz and Ottavino and maybe put Joely Rodriguez, depending on the matchup? I think the Mets can go with 2 lefties if they face a team that has a lot of lefties in their lineup, or they can use on the bench as well. So you might go with Peterson and Joely Rodriguez. Or if it's mostly right-handed batters, do you want to say, all right, we'll leave Joely off the roster and Walker will be on there, and maybe we have to put May on there as well? So there's a lot to talk about with that. The bench too. I'm sorry, Gore is on the postseason roster. This guy's won 3 championships on 3 different teams. There's a reason why. He's potent. He's dangerous for a team that needs that stolen base, maybe to go ahead to tie the game in late in games. He's automatically on there. Obviously, Guillorme's on it. The 2 catchers. You're going to talk about Nito. He's going to be there. It's going to come down to Vogelback, Nate Quinn, Ruff. Will the Mets leave Vientos on the roster? Maybe they'll look at another way. Maybe they want to go with the veterans and keep Nate Quinn, Vogelback, and Ruff. You've seen it with Buck all year. You've seen it with the Mets. They've been trusting their veterans all year. When everybody wanted Escobar to sit on the bench, Buck and the organization kept on keeping him up there. And, they gave him some breaks. They made him sit when there was a righty on the mound and keep him, make him hit against lefties because he was hitting well right-handed. And then he finally started to figure it out. So maybe sometimes we might not know everything, and they're trusting their veterans. And I wouldn't be surprised the Mets want to trust their veterans like Vogie and Nate Quinn and Ruff over, will they keep Vientos on the roster or something like that? I got to go with the veterans. I have to do that, because with the young guys, you just never know. And you just never know. So with that said, there will be a video. Maybe I'll just go live during the postseason or when we decide a postseason roster. or I'll just do a video and you guys can comment on it, when you see it. That obviously that will be at the end of the season. But Ken, I agree. Ruff is useless, but we've seen it when for 2 weeks we all wanted Vientos up because Ruff is useless. We all said if Vientos comes up and he's just as bad as Ruff, we're not losing anything. So, but again, Buck and this organization wants to go with their veterans. So that's why when, you seen it the other day, will they use Peterson as that lefty out of the bullpen only? Or will they just go with Joely Rodriguez only to the matter of he's a bullpen arm? We don't know what Peterson will do. We've seen him a couple times. He's been okay. He's been good. So he hasn't really been great. And I'm trying to think in Buck's mind, I guess you can say. But it's clear they like to go with the veterans. So if you're going to go with the veterans, you clearly know what the bench is going to be. You're not going to see Vientos. You're not going to see Dominic Smith. You're not going to see, even though, I would like that late defensive replacement at first base that can play good defense. I think we're lacking that. And we've seen it a couple of times late in games when Pete Alonso can't get over to the bag or can't flip. Even though he's been good defensively, he has his moments where he's kind of awkward at first base, and sometimes that can hurt you late in games, but I'm not going to go crazy about that. But I think the 5 guys that are the 6 guys that are on the benches, Nito, Gore, Guillorme, Ruff, Naquin, and Vogelback. I think that's what's going to be on the bench. And then you're probably going to go with 13 pitchers in the bullpen. We'll see what that's going to be. And then obviously your starters. Your starting pitchers. And, if it's a divisional round or a wild card round, you're probably only going to use 3 pitches anyway in either one of those series. So you know who the 3 guys are: Bassett, Scherzer, DeGrom. If it's a divisional series, if it's a 7-game series like the NLCS, then you have to think about who is going to be a number 4. It's probably, again, they're going to go with the veteran who's been there before in Carlos Carrasco. I know Carrasco can be hit or miss sometimes, but I'm going with the veteran who has the experience, who pitched well in the playoffs for the Indians/Guardians in his career. So you have to do that. So with this being said, if you don't know the pitching setup for the Mets, it's going to be Bassett, DeGrom, and Scherzer. And that lines up perfectly for the weekend series against Atlanta with the Mets off days as well. No, Ken, I agree. That's why I said I like what Pete has done at first base. He scoops up a lot of balls, but you've seen it sometimes. Like when there's a ground ball to him, he has that weird hesitation. Like, is the pitcher going to cover? Should I go? He has those mind blocks sometimes that worries me. And that can listen. We don't need another Lucas Duda situation. And I know Pete Alonso is way better defensively than Lucas Duda, but we've seen a couple times this year when Pete Alonso can't make a throw home, and he has trouble turning the double play when the ball's hit to him. He did it at Citi Field or was it at Citi Field or Pittsburgh? When the ball was hit right in front of him and the bag was right there, he decided to throw to second instead of stepping on first and getting the runner into a rundown. He has that mind blocks. The glove is fine, but mentally sometimes he makes weird mistakes, and that can cost you in the playoffs. And that's what I worry about with him. And if you're not going to have another defensive first baseman that can help you out late in games, especially if you're ahead, then that sucks. But again, Ken, I'm not killing him because of that. I'm talking about mentally. Mentally, he has his issues. He's not a very smart first baseman, right? He makes those weird mistakes that you should know what to do in high school, in junior high school, in little league sometimes. You should know when you're turning the double play and the ball is hit to you and you're close enough to the bag that you don't have to make a spinning move to throw to second base and hopefully you get the double play. You step on first and you throw the ball as quickly as possible or see where the runner is to second base, or you bring him in a rundown. So it's going to come down to the look. you still think, yeah, but he's still learning, but that learning process can hurt you in the playoffs, right? Lucas Duda was still learning, right? Technically, was he a first baseman? Was he an outfielder? Who the hell knows, right? But you don't want to go into a situation when you're in Game 5 of a World Series and you need to make a throw to home. Pete Alonso can't do that. We've seen it a couple of times this year. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that worries me. And again, having Gore on this team is a weapon, but not having a defensive backup first baseman in the playoffs could be a problem late in games. Not saying it won't. He can make the great throw home, but we've seen it a couple of times this year when it was late in games and he has to make a throw home and it's offline. He's not playing in enough or whatever he's doing, but he's been so much better. He's been getting better every year. And he works on it, which is great, right? You saw him at the All-Star game taking drills with Washington, right? You saw that with Ron Washington in the All-Star game when he could have just been having fun. So, yeah, but Dominic Smith is not Keith either, but I'd rather have Dominic Smith late in games defensively than Pete Alonso. Because at least I know Dominic Smith is smooth with the glove, and I can see Dominic Smith making that throw. I don't trust Pete Alonso making that throw home or turning that double play when we need it. We've seen it a couple of times, but he has that mental block. I don't think it's the glove that's the problem. It's his arm where he has trouble turning double plays and throwing the ball at home. When he has to throw something, when he has to throw across the diamond, when a guy is stuck between second and third, and you got to throw to third base, can he make that long throw? You have to think of these little things, that extra base that runner might take in the playoffs. That's what I worry about. I think it's mental with Pete Alonso. I don't think it's skill. President, I'm not talking about offense. I'm talking about late inning defensive replacement. That's why Smith is valuable at first base. Not offensive. Offensively, it's a joke. Well, I don't need him every day. I need him in the 8th inning because I seen it this year when you needed a big time play or a big scoop or something that Dominic Smith do it. I don't think Pete Alonso can do it. I think Dominic Smith is smooth at first base. I don't think Dominic Smith needs to think what he has to do at first base. Pete Alonso is constantly thinking at first base because, like you just said, Ken, he's still learning. Dominic Smith's not learning at first base. All right? Pete Alonso is an offensive juggernaut, right? He's not up here because of his defense's prowess, right? I mean, he's not. We know what he is. Pete Alonso is a slugger and a guy who I'm not worried about his glove. I think he can catch the ball. The problem is, what is his mind telling him when he catches the ball, right? Like that mind block that he had the other day, like I just said. He was right next to the bag. He decided to throw it to second base and gave the runner running down first the opportunity to beat out a double play ball. Those type of plays, you can't make those mental mistakes in the playoffs. It will cost you. Dom made some good plays. Come on, you can't see. It's not about making great plays. It's making the simple play and not making that mental error. Pete Alonso does that a lot. Mentally, he doesn't think sometimes. Again, I think Pete can get to any ball. But what does he do with that ball when a runner is on? I don't think you're understanding the mental aspect that Pete Alonso has. Pete Alonso has a problem mentally at first base, not getting to a ball. And until he makes that throw home and turns that double play and makes that long throw, that worries me. I mean, we seen it a week ago when he couldn't throw the ball home. He couldn't throw a strike home on a play when he was coming in. When he had time, he could have set his feet and throw the ball home and still got the runner. He rushed it. The ball went past the catcher and the run scored. And the first thing I thought of, Lucas Duda. Not saying he's as bad as Lucas Duda because that's stupid to say. Mentally, he's got to be more smart. Now, can that change in 2 weeks? Who knows? Maybe it can. But I don't see him mentally being where we need him to be at first base at that moment. I'm sorry. I don't trust Pete 100% at first base. I don't. I think that Pete can get to any ball. Diving catches. He got better with scoops. But when you need to turn that double play, when you got to make that long throw to second or get that runner going home. But Ken, you have to cherry pick in the playoffs. That's the problem, right? You have to cherry pick in the playoffs. That little mistake, right, can cost you in the playoffs. It might not cost you during the season. You can blush it under the rug because you're playing 162. But when it's game 5 and you need to win that game, every pitch, every inning is going to be nerve-wracking. I trust Pete getting to the ball, but what does he do mentally? That's where we have to look at. And again, you keep on going back to his glove. We're not talking about the glove. Ken, please pay attention. Mentally, he catches that ball. What does he do with it? Does he know where to go with the ball? Does he think and say, hey, if I catch the ball near first base and I got a double play opportunity, I got to step on the bag so I can get the runner in a rundown. So it'll be easier instead of throwing that long throw where you're right next to first, throwing it to second. You might hit the runner because the runner might be right in front of you. What are you going to do? That's the thing. Mentally. And Ken, that's a stupid comment. If you don't think Dominic Smith is a better first baseman than Pete Alonso, you're not paying attention. I'm sorry. You're my guy. I love you, but it's stupid. If the Mets had a quality, good defensive substitute first baseman, Lucas Duda would have never been in that game in the World Series late in the game. I'm sorry. It's just that simple. Yeah, well, you heard Ken. Keith would even tell you that Dominic Smith's a better first baseman than Pete Alonso. Again, it's the mental aspect. It's not about the glove with Pete Alonso. It's not. Pete can get to any ball. He can make those diving catches. He can scoop. He can make those plays. But it's what does he know? Does he think about? It's not about how many times Smith played. I already know. You can throw Smith tomorrow at first base. He will make every play. He will not. I guarantee you, Smith would have stepped on first and thrown that ball to second or get the runner in a rundown than what Pete Alonso did. It's just that simple. Again, we'll know what's going to happen because Dominic Smith is not going to be on this postseason roster. What he said when he got sent down, you wash your hands of him. So Pete Alonso is going to be the guy late in games, early in games. Your backup first baseman is rough. I don't care about the past. We're not talking about the past. We're talking about Pete Alonso a week ago. What he did in that game, trying to throw the ball home, couldn't throw a strike when he had enough time. Didn't turn a double play because mentally he screwed up. It's not the glove. It's mentally. Mentally, he isn't on the level where I think his glove is. You have to think that makes sense, right? You have to think of that, right? It's not just catching the ball. You got to do something after that. But we just talked about Pete Alonso and the mistakes he made in the last week and a half. And that will cost you in the playoffs. Again, he's a slugger. I trust him getting to the ball. But what does he do with that ball once he catches it? Does he know what to do with that ball? Does he get a brain freeze like he did the other day, right? The bag's right next to you. Common sense. It doesn't take a rocket science to know that you have to step on first and throw this and then get the runner in a rundown. That's what you're supposed to do. It's very simple. He couldn't do that. Now, could he learn from that? Absolutely. I think Pete is smart enough to know that he made that mistake, but don't make it again. Pete Alonso last year had problems scooping balls early on in the season. He fixed his mistakes, right? He traveled the ball, right? Keep your glove low and come up with the ball. He learned that. He got better at that. Remember the problem that he had last year where Sometimes he would play too far off the bag. He wouldn't know if he had to run or leave the ball so the second baseman can get it, or run the first base so the second baseman can get the guy out. There's a couple of things there where he fixed that mistakes as well. So I don't think Pete Alonso next year is going to be making those mistakes that we've seen him do this year. I think he's going to make better throws. I think he's going to think before what he's going to and do. Yeah, but see, again, you're still not listening. You're not listening, buddy. Improvement he has made with the glove. Mentally, he's not all the way there yet. I am telling you, Ken, if Pete Alonso fucks up in the playoffs because mentally he didn't know what to do with that, it's going to be a problem. I'm telling you that right now. And once again, when the Mets needed in 2015 that defensive replacement at first base and they did not have it, like I said, you're not taking out Lucas Duda to put Daniel Murphy there, who is just as bad as a first baseman there. You have to look at the situation there, right? We all think Terrence Gore needs to be on this roster because what he can do, what the threat he can do. I'm going to tell you right now, if there's a guy on third base with less than 1 out and he's running on contact, if the ball is hit to Pete Alonso, it's a 50-50 chance he's going to throw a strike to home. That's a problem. You know, Pete Alonso corrects his mistakes. He learned from his mistakes. Can he learn it within the season? You know, I don't know if you can learn to throw better. I don't know if that naturally gets better, to be honest with you. You know, he's not sloppy at first base at all, but he doesn't seem like a natural first baseman, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have them natural skills. And we love that Pete learned to get better at first base, right? That was the whole big thing why the Mets didn't want to bring him up in 2019. He wasn't ready at first base, but his bat was. So that's something you have to look at. You have to think about, right? Why do you think we wanted Luis Guillorme back so much? Because he can play all over the diamond, and you know you can trust him defensively, right? In late in games, if it's second base or third base or depending on what you need, you know Luis Guillorme is coming in defensive replacement. Ken, with me, baby, 5 drinks. Come on now. You know you got to start off with 5 drinks with me. I piss people off. I hit the nerve. I love it. But you're wrong about Pete Alonso, right? We're not talking about the glove, baby. We're not talking about the glove. I haven't, you know what I know? I know Rizzo can make that throw. Put it that way. Well, Grant, that's not fair. You own bars. That's not fair. You could just go bloop and bloop. You know, you can just keep on doing that, you know? But listen, guys, the fun part about this is we're talking about postseason baseball and the possibility of what can happen and not happen. That's fun, right? Again, we've had enough heartbreaks where I think we deserve a chance to be happy for once, right? And we could put a smile on our face today on this off day because the Mets are playoff bound. We got some work ahead. We got a division to win, right? Starts with tomorrow against Oakland, 9:40 start. I'm not doing a stream tomorrow, just so everybody knows. You guys know I work late. It's impossible to do a West Coast game. Ken, come on. So, once again, guys, key to the games, as always with the Mets, right? Take advantage of bad teams and their mistakes. They always make them. The Mets have to capitalize on them. Bad teams make mistakes, right? You've seen the Braves make the Nationals made mistakes. The Braves capitalized on it. They didn't do it yesterday, but the Braves made a couple of bonehead plays yesterday where the Braves could have took advantage of it. But you know what? Look what the Braves did yesterday. They got into a stupid base running error that killed their rally. You know, the Braves' problem all year they made a lot of those base running blunders. And we are Philly fans for 4 games. So let's go Philly, ring that bell, right? No, James, blah. Come on. That's right. I'm talking shit. And when I'm talking to you, Ken, I don't have the annoying troll Brave fans. Like James is a good Braves fan because he's not talking nonsense, right? He's just talking about his team and what he needs, what they need to do, right? But Ken, I don't got the Braves fan, so I gotta mess with you, man. Gotta mess with you. And don't hate. I got a little color on my face. The sun's still around. Just wait until the winter time when you don't see me and you see me once in a while, right? You can see Ghost. So once again, guys, the Braves play the Phillies tonight at 7. I think it's 7. I don't know. If I can find my phone, I would look. I'm too lazy to put up the schedule, but yeah. But the Mets are off today. They face the Athletics tomorrow at 9:40, game 1 of the series. Bassett is on the mound going back home to Oakland. So I expect him to be ready to go and probably want to pitch his ass off like he always does, and I don't expect anything more than that. And yes, of course, Judge is going for the tie of Roger Maris and possibly breaking it. So again, as much as we don't like the Yankees, it is Judge isn't the guy I hate, right? Because I hate the jersey, I don't hate the player. Oh, Ken, I was thinking about like somebody would throw at him and like hurt his hand or something like that. Like I was waiting for that, honestly. Honestly, I'm waiting for somebody to throw at him and hurt him. And hopefully that doesn't happen because of the fact that, like, listen, if he is, like I said, nobody really knows if he's clean. We all think he is. You get tested, and I can assure you Major League Baseball is testing him probably every day just to make sure. Because the last thing you need, and MLB doesn't need another situation where Judge breaks the record and they find out after the season that he was taking something. Let's not have that problem again. So they're probably testing him any day. Any day. Every day they're testing him. They're probably making him piss in the cup 2 or 3 times a day. So we'll see what happens with that. I kind of got a funny idea to piss off Yankee fans with Aaron Judge in the offseason. So that will come. I'll just give you a little hint and a little bit of a preview. I got a cool little video in my head where it will really piss off Yankee fans, even though I don't think the Mets are going to sign him. Even though if you look at the odds, the Mets are 3-1 favorites to get Judge, which makes no sense to me. But I do like the fact that I like I'm not a troll, but it's off season. It's boring, so I need to troll Yankee fans. And if I'm going to troll anybody, you got to troll the other team in town, right? Their fans. So you got to do that every now and then, I get enough troll jobs on my channel, so I might as well have fun in the off season, right? So preview what I'm going to say about. I'm going to do a little funny video where Yankee fans might get excited in the beginning of that video, and then it's going to have a little interruption, and then they're going to be pissed off. So I'm going to give you that's a little hint for you guys in the off season, but it's a long way to go for the off season. Yeah, committee. I don't see. Will the Mets make an offer? Probably, but with all the free agents the Mets have, I think you need to worry about the guys you're going to keep before the guys you might add, in my opinion. So again, it's a no-brainer. Do you want Judge or you want Nimmo? Every day of the week you'll take Judge, but we all know he's never going to have another year like he had this year. So you have to look at that. Instead of 64 home runs, he might hit 35. Possibly that's what he would hit. Still probably have 90 RBIs. He's a 300 hitter. But, can he stay healthy? He stayed healthy this year, but we've seen it so much, right? Jacoby Ellsbury was always healthy and had his best year in his contract year and then was hurt ever since. So you don't want to deal with that $350 to $400 million player who might get injured. So we'll see what happens. But once again, guys, thank you guys for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Remember, Braves Phillies tonight in about less than an hour. And you got the Mets tomorrow with Bassett on the mound in Oakland. So with that said, let's go Phillies, ring that bell. And as always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. 11 games left, guys. We are here at the end of the season. Less than 2 weeks to go. We got 4 series to go. We got Oakland and Oakland. We come back home for 2 against Miami. Then we go to Atlanta for 3, and to end the season with the Nationals. Hopefully by after that Braves series, we have a better understanding on who's going to win that division. Pretty good chance it's going to be the Mets, but the Mets control their destiny, guys. They could be a half game up by the end of today or a game and a half up by the end of today. Let's see what the outcome is. Let's go Phillies. Let's go Mets. Have a good night. See you next time, guys.